The fleet management is not an easy logistics task, and the warehouse management either. If you are a company that have the support for the full supply chain, it is a combined number of different problems. So it's a situation when you need to solve all of the problems through the whole chain, and which may be connected with the different warehouses in your infrastructure or a third-party infrastructure, which may be connected with different vendors who will actually run through the supply chain. And it's a pretty complex task. It has been complex for many years, for many decades. There are a lot of technology that were aimed and focused on solving this kind of problems, but still there are a lot of complexity related to it, because in parallel with the appearing of different technology solutions that can help with it, the scale and the number of the vehicles, the number of the speed of the delivery, the number of the warehouses and the volume of the goods, it actually increasing and scaling a lot. So let's talk about a few cases that where technology can actually benefit your work with the supply chain, or can help you with the different steps of it, like the actual monitoring of the health of the supply chain itself, the optimization of the supply chain, or the performance of the specific people within it as the part of this system, or actually certain solutions that can improve the end of this chain, like the retail stores or the sales process in general in automotive. So for those who haven't attended the previous one, I'm Alex Sirko from Archer Software. I spent quite a bit of time in this company, like more than 12 years already. I've spent it on different positions, like the engineer and also the project manager. I delivered some number of projects, then optimized the actual delivery in the company overall, and right now managing the company. So I've been with the automotive kind of division for many years, and have some insights and thoughts from the project we ran. So let's take the first case study for actual, when you have a big fleet and you actually need to fulfill it with people. Right now, there is certain trends for automotive fleets and for certain optimization of the driving itself, but it is yet in very new technology. It's still edgy, and a lot of humans are and human drivers are still involved in this process, and still will be involved for a lot of the time, because even if it's a semi-automated automotive, there is still a person who will be actually monitoring it, who will be supervising it or driving himself in a critical situation. So right now, the current fleets have a lot of people involved in actual driving, and this is usually a pretty big and challenging issue of managing these drivers to perform when the whole chain, when the whole routing and processing is actually made. Then the drivers are actual people who execute it, and the training, the hiring, the motivation, the retention of these people is critically important to have your plan of the delivery executed well. So the question is that this process is actually require a lot of knowledge of these people, a lot of human resource efforts, a lot of efforts to organize the ecosystem for a pretty hard job they do, because they spend on the road a lot of time, and we'll talk about it a bit later. But all of them are human, and it's hard to control not just the fleet from technical perspective, but from human management also. So we'll be talking a lot about OBD. So in this case, I would mention that OBD devices, the devices that you can install on a consumer or a commercial vehicle to do the onboard diagnostics, to read the data from the vehicle. It's a different kind of the data that vehicle can share on different types and the models of the vehicles and types of the models of the actual OBD device. But in general, it's a channel where you can gather the read-only data about the vehicle state, its performance, its speed, and based on this data, do a certain analysis that we can elaborate on them a bit later. So the kind of the trucking industry, the driving of the big fleets is the critical. It's essential for the U.S. economy and for all the economies worldwide. It's actually the bloodlines or the routes that deliver the goods between the different economy hubs and to small cities, to big cities, to between the warehouses, through the whole supply chain. So it's a critical and a huge, massive load of trucks and people involved. but as I mentioned, it's a pretty hard job to do. Like the driver usually, on average in US, spends like 70 hours and 8-day work, and within a week, and they usually have a day off or a week off. But during this period of time, it's actually overperforming nearly double comparing with the average 5-day work kind of job. So these people not only hard to kind of get to the company, it is hard to retain them, but it is pretty hard also to measure their kind of health state, their performance on the road, and their health condition, and etc. So how could you pretty much use the technology to help this situation? The OBD device can bring you the data, and same as the cases that I mentioned in the first webinar that you may want to check. The OBD data may be used to score the driving performance, to actually monitor the way of how the vehicle is driven right now or retrospectively in the long term in terms of the performance, to detect the anomalies or emergency situations, to detect score the general performance of the driver. And definitely this kind of data can help a lot into measuring your driver performance immediately once they started the job. So you don't need to wait the 3 months trial period or lose a certain kind of get a schedule disruption or lose the goods to understand that this driver may not fit into your ecosystem, or vice versa, that the driver that has just entered the team is actually performing much better than average, or actually matching your channel of the average performance that you want and expect from him. You can get this data immediately, not just by measuring it on the stop and beginning of the route, but measuring it consistently, and not only the fact that he delivered in time, but the way how he does it, how he performed on the road, and what's his score, whether he was driving aggressively or not, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of parameters that you can find analyzing this data. So it can solve, and in our case, we worked with the company that actually had this problem. They were a small, medium-sized fleet that was always consistently striving to find the good people and actually to retain them properly. So they had both problems of hard to hire a good, educated driver and actually keep him in, but also to actually filter out the people who, and not to spend too much effort and resource on the people who actually perform not well. So we proposed a solution that was measuring the overall performance using the OBD, and that actually helped them solve the problem. And right now they mostly monitor and track and actually benefit, like, do the awarding of the drivers who have a good performance, and they measure the trial period more effectively, and it's actually reflected in their job descriptions and etc. So this is the one case how you can actually influence your fleet with those data from the OBD. But there are other ones, because in fact, if you talk about not just the data from you get from the vehicle, but the whole set of the data, so whole number of the different data sets that connected to the warehouses, the actual vendors, and that can actually need to be combined to those supply chain solution that I mentioned initially. You might want to gather this data all together, and that's exactly what we're doing, for example, for one of our big enterprise clients, when we're building a system that combines together the data from the warehouse about the number of the goods and the type of the goods that need to be delivered, their proportion and sizes, their availability on the stock, their actually time to be loaded to the track, the volume of the tracks, the availability of the tracks, their health, sustainability based on the performance of the OBD, the performance of the drivers of these tracks, the actual prices of the vendors that can provide this driving, the state and the volume of the warehouses on the end point of the supply chain, and combining together all this data, there is a lot of optimization and intelligence in the system that propose to the optimal solutions better than the human operators, and the client can see dramatic benefits of it, and altogether it works analyzing a lot of data within a very short period of time that just enable for a human to perceive. So this kind of interconnection usually built in a bigger enterprise, because it definitely requires certain effort and resource to build, to integrate, and actually to analyze the data that need to be gathered and to analyze whether this performance has actually given the benefit expected. But once built, it actually can optimize the business dramatically and can on every aspect of it. So it's definitely a technology that might be needed to adopt and for a mid-sized business, and in this situation, we consider with few clients an option to kind of take more or less ready solutions and integrate them each to other and put inside the intelligence that we can build for the custom system and combine it together to a supply chain that can perform as well as the big one, completely custom for the enterprise level, but it less expensive in terms of the original development, and that can be adjusted later in the later stages, like fully following the concepts of the agile and the step-by-step development. Actually, like when we speak about this, when we have been speaking about it, I touched briefly the measuring of the health sustainability of the tracks, and this is another subsystem that we have been developing for one of the enterprise clients. They were actually based on the kind of a big number of heavy vehicles that were delivering the goods to the retail stores, and they wanted to analyze the health status of the whole fleet, kind of to have the understanding of the maintenance needed and to include this data to those complete supply chain solution that I just described in the previous few slides. So what we did was started gathering, or we actually started processing the data that was already been gathered from those heavy vehicles, and we started analyzing the changes in this data and do certain forecasts or actual direct highlights of the maintenance that may be needed, the services that this vehicle may require, but attach it to the information about the rest parts of the other parts of the supply chain, so that it is actually smartly included to the moment when this vehicle can be let off for the maintenance, but for this period of time actually substituted with the other vehicle that can perform the job for it. So it was prepared in a fashionable manner with this intelligence, and the system was recommending and actually routing the driver of the heavy vehicle for the maintenance and changing the actual set of the vehicles on route to support the delivery that those vehicle and the maintenance should have been done before. This also gave a definite visible optimization of the maintenance, because the client who he was working with on this actually had a certain kind of disruption of his original supply chain planning because of this maintenance. The fleet was not very big; it was average size, and because of this, the maintenance of every vehicle was kind of pretty disruption for a certain even region of the country. The first analysis that this data brought was actually the realization that the number of the fleet need to be changed, but not blindly like, okay, let us get 2 more tracks or 5 more tracks, 5 more vehicles, heavy vehicles to actually do the delivery. But it actually was based on those analysis on how the route may be optimized without losing the delivery schedule and tempo, while sending the heavy vehicles to the maintenance, and a certain number of the vehicles were purchased in addition, and the actual system intelligence was advising on how to operate it in a good way. So if we move further to through the pipeline and through the chain, we can touch a different technical solution that can help on the, as I mentioned in the beginning, that can help on the beginning and the end of the pipe. That can actually help you close the deal if it's a retail product, and or help you retain your customer if it's a service. Or do the both, as in our case. So I will be talking about one of the cases that we briefly touched in the previous webinar too. It was related to the retail store, and a successful case of doing the small and ugly but effective MVP that all the clients actually liked, and then it was developed to more kind of nice looking and working product. when the client of the retail store that was selling the vehicles was accompanying the vehicle with the application that was helping to analyze the health status of the vehicle, the performance of the driver itself, to share this status with the other users, and to analyze the routes and to analyze the performance of the vehicle in different parts of the road. So the development of this application was not actual aim to do the direct monetization based on the app itself. It was aiming the approach to use this application as the additional factor like the buying factor to close the deal easier with the retail that only if you purchase the vehicle within this store or the network of the stores, you will get the app that can help you actually utilize your vehicle the most effective way to get the more comfort with it and to have the better analysis of its health status and etc. So while starting is just the supplementary to closing the deals, when the client has actually started working with them, they understood that it actually helped retaining them, because like after the client was receiving certain kind of understanding of his performance with the vehicle, he might have been wanted additional services for the vehicle itself, for the general maintenance, but also for the abilities of the vehicle to perform, like additional services and abilities to do that empower the certain weakness in a driving mode or in a driving style, or that can increase the score and the level of the driving, helping the driver kind of on the road. So different solutions for driver assistance was actually requested, and some of them actual retailer already had in stock for this kind of specific vehicle type, but some of them were actually new, and few of them we implemented in the application itself. So the clients were asking for more help or assistance to not just monitor their performance on the road, but actually to get certain assistance for better driving and for actual acceleration that is going smoother, for certain assistance and etc., based on the rules that they can configure, not just predefined by the OEM or the vendor that created the vehicle originally, but some customization that can help to change their driving style to the way they want it, not to the way it was predefined originally, for example. So it was one of the features we developed for this app. And it helped to retain the clients a lot, because in addition to just improving the closing of the deal, the closure of the deals, the fact of the selling of more vehicles, it actually helped getting clients back to get the additional services and even to give them custom services, increasing the level of their retention, because they never had even a chance to request a specific change in the service they were getting from other retail stores. The other services were pretty canned, and they had to use it as is, but in this situation they got unexpectedly for them even the ability to do certain changes to the level how they operate the vehicle, which they never actually had before. From technology perspective, this approach was also based on the data that was gathered from the vehicle telematics, and the approach was pretty same as on previous steps of the pipeline and the previous steps of the supply chain. So it's still the same kind of data that you gather. That's pretty much a road telematics that give you the immediate real-time, one-time moment status of the vehicle on the road, but combining it to the certain data sets and doing a certain intelligence on top of it, you can gather pretty wide number of different types of the data and insights that you can use for your business. Like sometimes even changing your model completely as getting the additional revenue stream from where the actual retailer never expected it. Even when having this original idea to develop the app, he was mostly focusing on the closure and not on the retention, but by the end of the day, he got both of that. The retention models can be, or the closure models can be different. So for example, the another solution we have been developing for Volvo, one of the features that it contained was the history of the vehicle, when actual preparing for the deal or analyzing, considering the deal with the certain retail spot, of Volvo, he was able to analyze not just the characteristics or the data about the vehicle itself, but to understand the performance of these vehicles from the whole network of the users that had already purchased it. So they were analyzing the data from the vehicles that went from this store and already spent certain time on the road, on how much actual maintenance it's required, and the data sets before it got to the end user. He analyzed the data and understood that it's not a big amount of the fixes, it's not a big amount of the maintenance that actually a good selling point to additionally prove that this vehicle is good, not just because Volvo says it, but because the actual users of the Volvo can prove it with the actual data of a specific vehicles on the road that through a period of time actually performed well and required a little of maintenance. And you can purchase the same kind of vehicle, this one, and join this network and share your data and confirm that this is so. And definitely this improved, at least helped, but also improved the conversion. And it improved the retention too, because there was a certain channel of the information that was constantly shared between the community of the drivers, and because of this fact that they were able to analyze the statistics not just of their own vehicle but also anonymized statistics by the other drivers, it was pretty natural to create the community of the drivers, and it was a separate channel for Volvo to approach, and they were able to approach just the people who actually were satisfied with the vehicle, definitely, and then for the people who was dissatisfied, they were approaching them directly, same as they would do with any other support. But this was an additional channel that was fulfilled with the data generated by the drivers themselves. So they wanted to be there to share the data and to see the data from the other drivers, and Volvo was catching them up there with the information they wanted to share with them, or to upsell, or to retain them within the service line. And again, we talk pretty much about pretty same data sets and pretty same telematics data that you can gather from the vehicle, and especially you can, in case of kind of OEM, the Volvo, they were even able not to use the OBD device, but to gather the data directly from the vehicles to their clouds, and then do the analysis with the custom application that we have been developing. So we didn't have a need to interact directly with the vehicle. We may just have analyzed the data sets that were already in the cloud, and it solved a bunch of the data sharing and anonymization problems, because the whole ecosystem of Volvo already have been built to the way that the data have been anonymized, and it was compliant with security standards required by the users and proved by the users with the strengths of the brand. As we worked within our application, worked within the ecosystem of the Volvo, so we were pretty able to get this data into those analytics algorithms that we were developing, that were given those data on and given those trends and statistics on different kind of performance of the vehicles on the road. And altogether, by the end of the day, that kind of using it for the sales channel was just one of the implications possible, and it went pretty well. So kind of if we talk about some draw line of all those cases, I would say that sometimes the data that you gather may be pretty surprising, not just for you as the retailer or the vendor or the builder of the supply chain or the manager of the fleet or the driver of the fleet. The data may surprise you. The data may give you certain insights that you haven't been expected. The data may change your approach to the model in general. It can give you an insights that can solve the core business problems. It can give you the kind of ability, the leverage to optimize your supply chains or fleets or your whole economy a lot. But the same as I mentioned on the previous one, and the same as I will mention probably in every webinar or talk, that if you don't gather it, you never know it. You never actually, until you try analyzing the data you can gather, until you start actually do this gathering of this data, until you run it through the intelligence, you never got this insights that may be fair or even unfair advantage of your business comparing to the other business in the line. So you may be the only fleet manager or the only company that have the routing or delivery business in the state that can do this, and it will be definite competitive advantage because you will be faster, you will be more effective, you will be more cost effective. And But if you don't have this in mind, if you run a kind of a non-digitalized business, and you never know that you have this opportunity until you get the data, even at least the data analysis. Like, for example, we usually run with the clients that came over to us, we usually run system analysis or business analysis phases, depending on what's the insights they want to get from us as the company that have this experience in the automotive domain, as the company that have delivered many projects in it and many products to market, or to like inside the supply chains, like in these examples. Depending on the request, we can advise whether on how to leverage the technology to help with it, how to where to start getting the data, what is the main problem that may be solved with the data, and how it can influence on the business, how it can influence on the revenue stream, how it can improve the return of investment on the development itself, or in general on the business if it's on early stage and it just have not yet actually got the break even and profit positive. So this is the business analysis we propose. In the system analysis, we can help to decompile this solution, this decision that, okay, this is the way on how the technology may help you, but how exactly the technology need to be developed to solve this problem. So what is the details of the implementation? What's the cost and timeline that need to be returned with this improvement of the revenue stream or this optimization that we talked about? And within these phases, we answer those questions and we try to help clients, and we actually help them to understand what are those insights they may get, and the architecture puts with them. Okay, so maybe if we get this data, maybe we can do even more than we expect. Maybe we can help the client not just to kind of help the sales, not just to close the deals, but to help him retain the client, how we can get him back, how we can actually approach him better, having this channel of the valuable information we already created for him. So we saw a lot of the situations while the system analysis phase, we actually change a lot the scope. During those data insights, even on paper, we found a lot of features that maybe even more valuable for the first versions, for the MVPs of the product. And then obviously we added some more and tracked it with the user and got the feedback and updated the application itself. But again, the main point is that when you start analyzing actual data and get the insights from the intelligence layer, you can get you may be surprised, and you may be surprised in a very good way, but you never know it if you don't do it. So hopefully it gave you some ideas on the way how you can help yourself or help your clients if you are a service provider. And if you would want to ask some questions or get some thoughts on your problematic or client issues, we'll be happy to assist. And yeah, please, we'll be glad if this information helped, and we definitely will be happy to help more. So thank you for being with me today. And yeah, we'll be happy to get questions about anything on this topic. Thank you. Goodbye.